Hi, it's Kathy Hampton from Wellside Retreats. Welcome to my channel. Wellside Retreats is a transformational destination retreat and life coaching service, and I help Black women move away from what no longer serves them and move toward what will serve them better or well. So today's video is me talking about divorce. What does that have to do with wellness? Well, it's a difficult topic to talk about, but I've wanted to really talk about it. I did do a video maybe about a year ago, a year and a half ago, about my golden divorce. And since then, I've gotten questions or comments about divorce. And I'll be doing a series of videos related to divorce and that entire topic from the beginning from separation through their various stages, separation through actually decoupling, no longer living with your spouse or partner, and moving into a new space as you are separating and decoupling, the logistics of the legal implications of divorce and what that means in different states and at different jurisdictions or states, um, who you should actually consider going through the process with. Should you use a lawyer or should you use mediation? As well as the finality of the divorce as decreed by the state or the judge. But then there's so much afterwards. And this has to do with wellness because it's a pivotal part of some people's lives. I've stated before that some people are what I call well equipped to divorce. They can finalize things, they can make things quick and easy for themselves. That's what it looks like from the outside. Some people have a hard time with divorce, ending something. And the reason why it's difficult for some others, is because a divorce is a coupling, or it's a combination of two people becoming one, supposedly becoming one. And when that other half is split, there's a death of a relationship. Sounds dramatic, and it is dramatic. It becomes there's a grieving process that's involved with a marriage, and that grieving process can take a long time. Grief takes a long time with the death of loved ones, so it's not any different in a divorce. I will share that I am a child of divorce, and you know, when I was growing up, my parents were divorced when I was 11. Yeah, I believe that's when I was 11 years old. And for me, it was a celebration, believe it or not, because I knew that my parents were not happy, and I knew that for a very long time. So when I divorced, I was married longer than my parents were, who were divorced after 17 years of marriage. I was divorced at 30 years of marriage. And that was partially because I I I believe I didn't want to be considered a failure because um, believe it or not, I had no model other than my parents who, in my family, both sides of the family, who were divorced. I did have an uncle a young uncle who had been divorced, but I didn't, I didn't really look at his predicament um, and make any judgment of it. Actually, didn't at all. He was divorced, just like, his oldest sister was, my mother. So um, it's a difficult subject to talk about, as I was saying. Let me get back on track because it's a grieving process. After 30 years of marriage, it is definitely a long grieving, can be a long grieving process. And I will say that I have grieved, but I've also really went deep inside introspectively to um, to manage my grief, if you can do that. I think people do. So the talk today is really about how do you talk about divorce. First of all, if you have never seen my videos before, I I usually am talking about wellness as regarding body, mind, and spirit of all things, and the transitions of life. And in fact, this is a large transition of life for some people. And if you would find this interesting and want to hear other um, topics about wellness and how you can get unstuck or move through transitions to better your life, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. If you see this and think that it might help someone else, please share it. And also, do me a favor and leave some comments or questions in the comment space below. So, talking about about divorce, the first steps that I took, and I'll be going through, I think, and I have notes, so I'm going to refer to them. About 3 stages of what I call talking about divorce is the first steps that I took were really talking to what I call my 3 pillars. These are people who I knew if I uttered the words of my surprise and my dismay and my hurt and disappointment, my sadness, if I these 3 people I knew would come and surround me and hold me up. There are 3 pillars that I knew. So these 3 people that I spoke to did in fact hold me up. And one was a friend who had gone through 2 divorces. One was a sister who had gone through divorce, and one was a friend who had had a high school friend, one of my closest high school friends, or closest friend really, who had experienced a sudden change in her relationship and knew about what I call the pains of it all, the grief of it all, and was successful at moving through it. So those were 3 people that I found who surrounded me, and I could just talk to them. They did provide some advice, but they did more by listening to me and giving me support and yeah, through the entire process. Um, and the other first step that I took was talking with the therapist. I decided, I need to find someone I can talk about um, this to. I suggest that if you don't have, say, three close friends, um, then you might want to find a therapist. It's hard to do that really at the beginning when you are separating um, or thinking that you're going to separate uh, because you feel like like you who do you trust? A stranger? Well, maybe you do, especially if you're having really high emotions about the separation, the divorce, the family matters involved in it, and I was. But one thing I did was I didn't shop around, so to speak, and that was a real disappointment. I went into a therapist's office, and all she wanted to talk about was who was getting the house. Bad therapist, especially when I needed emotional support. Yeah, bad therapist. But do your work, find someone that you believe you can talk to, interview them. I did not do that. And when I canceled my second appointment, she didn't understand, and I let her know that she was not helpful to me. I did not find another therapist, but I did go, and it was suggested that I find a religious divorce workshop. No, this was a group coaching session, and there were some really hurt people, and I was going to feel hurt in that situation. And so I no longer, I went to one meeting, and it was a tryout. That was not for me. I did not go back. Um, and then what I also did was I talked with people I was distant from. These were people who were not associated with me as a married person. I talked to people about my concern that at the time, that my marriage was not going to last. These people, um, they knew me, but they didn't know me as a married person. They knew me from other identifications. One was a person who um, worked in a campaign for my I ran for a public office, and she was very close to me and helped me with that. And she really knew me from that. Um, and we had children in the same school district, and so on and so forth. So what I felt was there was no quote unquote judgment because, believe it or not, our society still really frowns on divorce, especially people who have a religious context to marriage and what that is all about. Um, I'm not saying I'm not religious, but I'm not that doctrine. That doctrine does not really speak to me, and because my parents were divorced, and my mother was judged by ladies groups or parent groups. She wasn't allowed into some certain social circles, and so um, I felt that I needed to basically talk to people who I thought I could trust and who weren't going to judge my situation. Um, and when doing that, um, I started feeling a little freer. We celebrate marriage so much. Um, the engagement parties, the showers, the big giant wedding. We support those who are doing all of that work to get together and to marry, even when we may have thoughts that these people shouldn't be getting married. Some of us, just go along with the flow. Well, why can't you support someone who is getting a divorce that might be the best for them? It's just a question. Just a question. So, that was the first step that I took about talking, expressing myself about the uh, first the separation and then the impending divorce. And that took a while. That took a number of years before the divorce was finalized. So you need someone to communicate. You can't keep all of that inside of you, especially if you've been married and have gone through various changes and transitions through your married life. There's a lot of history. And to hold all of that in would be damaging, not communicating, keeping it in. I will say that, um, I didn't even speak, and I'll get to this in a minute, to close family or friends, except for the one sister, until I felt better about talking about it. And so the second stage, um, as I went through through this whole talking, was when I talked to one of my pillars and was given advice. And that was actually the first stage of what I called healing through doing the work. I started, this was at the very beginning, and this person told me, remember that you are loved. Remember you are loved no matter what is happening at this stage. And take your time to decide what you want. And this again was, do I want to stay the course, or do I truly want to end this marriage now? And then the third thing that this person and I talked about was to make a plan. Make a plan about what you want. So, first realize that you are loved, and with that love from yourself and others will carry you through this. This will be okay. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be okay. And then take the time to decide what you want. What do you want? Take the time, because you don't want to rush into something. And I did take my time in deciding what I wanted. In fact, I took about 4 years. I decided what I wanted, and then took 4 years to do that. But then I also made a contingency plan for myself. And so that was the second stage, after speaking to someone who had been through this process and been through the process twice, said to me, this was a great talk and set me up, I would say, for success through marriage, or through the end of my marriage, beginning of separation, and then the final divorce. Then the third stage of talking about divorce came when I decided that I was finally going to talk to family and friends, other friends, people who knew me as a married person, people who cared about me and loved me, And it really didn't happen until I separated. And that was really about 4 years after. Um, that was a 4 year uh, me believing that I could save my marriage, working on saving the marriage. And then when realizing that I could no longer save the marriage because it takes two to do the work in saving a marriage, takes two to tango, takes two to get married. And I realized that this was not salvageable. And I decided at that time to tell people that I knew I loved. I told my mother, I told my father, I told my other sister, I told people in my family what was going on, and I was then embraced by those people, family and friends. At least the handful of friends that I do have. I don't have a huge circle of friends. Um, and then the friends that I did speak with um, were some were understanding and some were not. Some didn't want to hear that sad news um, because they were actually going through some sadness themselves and had not talked about it. And so it's difficult to talk to someone who is hurting in the same way that you were hurting. And so we allowed ourselves to heal in our own space, and we've become even closer, some of us who've been going through the same thing at the same time and didn't know about it. So what these three things that I've been talking to you um, about divorce, and you talking about divorce, if that is in fact something that you are contemplating, something that you are actually on the road to experiencing, communication with someone is very important. We aren't meant to carry burdens alone. The world is full of people, and uh, it's meant for us to communicate, to be with one another, to help one another, and support one another. So if you do have a small group of friends who can hold you up and get you through, then do that. Do that. If you are in need of counseling, family support for counseling, and I'm really stressing, especially those people, those women with children, even adult children, because it's when you're empty nesting and you have children who are of a certain age after a 30-year marriage. You have some young adult children who just aren't getting it, or are getting it in a different way than younger children. Sometimes younger children are more resilient. Older children can be a little more difficult, and it takes some steps in getting clarity for them going through this process. So reach out to a group of three people. I'm going to say three, so that you don't wear anybody out in the conversation, in the discussion. That's it. That's one of the first steps. Then, secondly, um, I'm saying to you, you are loved. You are loved. Take time to decide what you want and make a plan. Thirdly, make a plan. So I have an outline here that I'm going through. So I'm hoping that it makes sense to you. And then third, tell people you know. Tell people you know, family and friends. once you can clearly speak to it, and actually, um, when you feel that you can trust them to hold you close and to lift you up. Trust is really an interesting thing, emotion or feeling. Trust takes time, and that's in any relationship. So when trust is breached or broken, becomes a formula. Trust is truth over time. It takes a long time to build up trust because you have to have truth that comes out of out of a relationship over a number of years, or takes time to develop. So is equals, trust equals truth over time, like a division. So once you get that that feeling that you can trust someone, then you can speak to them. If you can trust them, you can speak to them. But it takes time. That's for any relationship, family, friends, associates, co-workers, just anybody. Even your children, your mother, your father. Trust is key to being able to communicate your feelings without feeling judged, diminished, marginalized, um, inferior. Just be careful who you can speak to. But you do need to talk, communicate this important transition in your life. It's very important that you not hold on to hard feelings. You need to get it out. One of the things that I promote heavily, and if you've watched any of my videos before, and if you haven't, I talk about journaling and how journaling basically is one of the things that, for me, has been a wellness practice that I share, and has been pivotal to some of the transformations in my life. And it's helped me become clear about myself, aware. It has helped me observe my habits, my patterns. It has also provided a great comfort to me, because when I write something down, and if it is something that I want to manifest, it usually happens. And if I don't do that, I'm wondering, well, where's the thing that's supposed to help me? Where's the thing that I want? Well, I hadn't written it down. Write it down, manifest it, visualize it, and think about what you want in your life. And it's a tool that really helps in moving from one change to another, one transition to another, getting to some transformation, some key transformation or impact in your life. But one thing you need to do is communicate, whether that be orally or writing something down in a form of communication. And you'll notice the difference in how you feel and how you move through life, especially what I consider, after 30 years of marriage, to be one of the largest things that has changed my life besides either being born or having my own children. Those are significant transitions and transformations of becoming a human, being here in this world, and then being a mother myself. It is a death of a relationship, a long-term relationship, but it's also the birth of a new vibrant person. And so that's one key, is because I communicated it to my friends and family. I loved myself. I decided what I wanted to do. And then I took the action to make a plan for my life. And that is what I do all the time now, for any major move in my life. So I hope that this has been helpful to you. Consider talking about divorce, saying the words out loud. It's not a bad word. It is just part of life. It really is. There's no judgment, no shame. There should not be any stigma. Really, it should not be. And get on with living your life. I'll be talking more about divorce in upcoming videos. I started out with that one video about being okay with my golden divorce, but I want to also share with you other steps through to getting through this transition, or this transformation, this life change, that you may be going through, or someone that you know is going through, and you can share that information. So until we see each other again, be well, take care,